Welcome to the Vault Excel. Today you will hear information pertaining to Ruby Frank and her business associate partner, Jodi Hildebrandt. I'm also going to bring you information pertaining to the LDS Church, the FLDS Church, which is a branch broken off. And I'm going to tie them all together into this diabolical case of child abuse against said children that belong to Miss Ruby Frank and her husband. We're going to dissect the church. We're going to dissect the mental state of these two females and also the mental state of the husband who has allegedly been missing from the lives of the mother and the children for 13 months. I will play you commentary via the YouTube queue pertaining to his attorney, the father, and his rendering of what has been alleged by the father and his reasons for not being with the mother and not being around the children. Are these two deranged individuals? Does the church play a role in their rendering of punishment, attitudes toward the children, and general ideas of child rearing and ideologies? Or is it a combination of both? Deranged individuals who met another deranged individual and one fed off the other. What is the truth? Because see, where there's going to be a problem if we want to say that one had more of a hold on the other, conspiracy of like minds. I'm going to bring you commentary pertaining to Sherry, the older child, girl child of Ruby Frank, who says this has been going on for years. Also, sisters also making the same claim. And if Miss Hildebrandt was not in the lives of the husband and Miss Ruby, then that means Ruby, husband, whomever, were abusing the children before Miss Hildebrandt came into the picture. So how long has she known Miss Hildebrandt? How long was she staying on the compound at this woman's house? And were these two in a romantic relationship? Because you see, as I've always told you, I see things differently than most. And I see something more sinister than a business venture. Were these two in a relationship? Because there's something off between the two. And as you've seen with the Lloyd Vallow Daybell, Chad Daybell debacle, there's always something more to the story. A mix of religion, a mix of jacked up, warped ideologies, sex, greed. I think this has the makings of a part 2 Lloyd Vallow Daybell and the Chad Daybell story. And we're going to dissect how all this came to be, how a child fled for his life and brought the truth to light, finally. The role everybody played that knew that the children were being abused, and did they ever call Department of Human Services? How many calls were made to Department of Human Services? How many times did they visit Miss Ruby Frank, the father? Did they talk to any other friends, relatives, neighbors, teachers? Were the children in school or were they homeschooled? We're going to talk about all of that. And once again, we're going to talk about the church, their role in the lives of these people. And is this a fanatical, radical religion? Do they play a part in warping the mindsets of people, or are the people already warped? Are they gullible, vulnerable, disillusioned? What is the truth? Because every person is not the same. We're going to talk about all of that. I want to thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are welcome during this live stream. We're going to start with thecut.com. Who is Ruby Franke? And who is Jodi Hildebrandt? And who is this mystery father that's been missing in action for 13 months, allegedly? And the role of the church, how does it figure into this diabolical saga that is now breaking news? Thank you all so much for joining me in the chat. The Cut is the source. Utah mommy vlogger Ruby Franke was once best known for her now defunct YouTube channel, 8 Passengers, where she documented family life with her husband and their 6 children. Now she and her business partner, Jodi Hildebrandt, I think I spelled her name wrong, but we'll take that off of there. Thank you so much. Jodi Hildebrandt faced a suite of child abuse charges after Franke's malnourished 12-year-old son escaped from a window of Hildebrandt's home and showed up at a neighbor's door asking for food and water. The neighbor called police, who later described the boy as emaciated in their affidavit. He allegedly had open wounds on his body and duct tape wound around his ankles and wrists. Investigators also found Franke's 10-year-old daughter in Hildebrandt's home, similarly malnourished. According to police, both children appeared to be in her direct, this is underlined, direct care, with Franke's knowledge. The children were taken to the hospital and are now under the care of Utah's Department of Child and Family Services, along with their 2 minor siblings. Franke and Hildebrandt, meanwhile, were arrested and charged with 6 counts each of felony child abuse. In a statement, the Washington County Attorney's Office in Utah accused both women of causing or permitting serious injury to children via a combination of multiple physical injuries or torture, starvation or malnutrition that jeopardizes life, and causing severe emotional harm, quote unquote. Crimes that carry up to 15 years in prison and a fine up to $10,000 per count. But viewers of 8 Passengers accused Franke of child abuse long before she was taken into custody, citing cruel parenting techniques like withholding food as punishment. News of Franke's arrest was met with relief from her sisters, fellow parenting influencers, Ellie Neckham, Julie Griffiths-Deru, and Bonnie Hollang, who said in a joint Instagram statement that the arrest needed to happen. Franke's eldest and estranged daughter, Sherry Franke, shared a similar sentiment on social media. Finally, Sherry wrote via Instagram story on August 30th after her mom's arrest, per Insider, "Me and my family are so glad justice is being served." Franke reportedly appeared in a Utah court via jail video call on September 7 to determine custody for her minor children. During the hearing, she appeared to blame them for her alleged abuse and accused one of them of molesting other children, per the Daily Mail. Below everything that's been reported so far. Franke's strict parenting on 8 Passengers has raised allegations of child abuse in the past. Franke launched 8 Passengers in 2015 and used her channel to chronicle her life, with her husband, Kevin Franke, a former engineering professor at Brigham Young University, along with the couple's 6 children: Sherry, Chad, Abby, Julie, Russell, and Eve. Franke used her platform to discuss parenting and share snippets of everyday activities, including driving with her kids and footage of family dinners. But viewers have long suspected the vlogger of something more nefarious. Allegations that Franke was abusing her children circulated widely in 2020 when Chad revealed he had his bedroom taken away for playing pranks on his brother and had been sleeping on a beanbag chair for 7 months as punishment. Some videos show Franke penalizing her kids by withholding food. Others show her threatening them with losing the privilege of eating dinner and arguing that her 6-year-old daughter should go hungry before she forgot to bring her packed lunch to school, per the Post. A TikTok of archival 8 passengers footage that circulated after Frank's arrest shows her ordering her children and nephews to get in line to eat a single banana. I love that I can talk to my nephews that way, Frank can be heard saying. In 2020, thousands of 8 passengers viewers signed an online petition calling for an investigation into Frank, prompting a Child Protective Services visit. Business Insider reports the case was closed because the claims were unsupported. What people aren't understanding is that we give our children choice in everything, Frank told the outlet in an interview at the time, pushing back against the allegations and accusing naysayers of taking videos out of context. Frank ultimately stopped posting videos to 8 passengers after further allegations of mistreatment from viewers. The channel had over 2 million subscribers before it was deleted earlier this year. Following the 8 passengers' fallout, Frank joined Hildebrandt's cult-like venture Connections. After the backlash against 8 passengers, Frank began working with Hildebrandt, a life coach and counselor for her platform Connections. The site/YouTube channel advertised itself as a support group for moms that helps treat those lost in the darkness of a distortion, and Frank signed on as a mental health coach. The two frequently appeared together in connection videos, advertised parenting classes, and ran the joint Instagram account Moms of Truth. Some critics labeled that venture a cult for its damaging and authoritarian teachings, directives that parents shouldn't love their children unconditionally, for example, and a theory that children do not deserve privacy. Per Insider, the two women also used the platform to spew racist, biased, and transphobic remarks. Additionally, the Salt Lake Tribune reports that the Utah Clinical Mental Health Counselor Licensing Board put Hildebrandt, a porn addiction therapist, on an 18-month probation in 2012 after she allegedly discussed the patient's case file with Mormon church elders without his permission. YouTube took Connections down after the women's arrest. Both women are currently being held without bail. Arrest records obtained the CBS News state Frank's 12-year-old son was put on medical hold due to deep lacerations from being tied up with a rope, and a police statement indicates that a search of Hildebrandt's home found evidence consistent with the markings on the boy's body. Both women were denied bail and remain in custody owing to the severity of the injuries inflicted upon Frank's 2 children. Per the Post, the police officer who responded to the incident said in an affidavit that Frank recorded a video in Hildebrandt's home 2 days before the arrest, suggesting she was aware of the abuse, malnourishment, and neglect taking place there. An attorney for Kevin Frank attempted to distance himself from the abuse allegations, claiming he is distraught over them and has lived separately from his wife for the past 13 months. We've been trying to tell the police and CPS for years about this, and so glad they finally decided to step up, Sherry Frank wrote on her Instagram story. Per the New York Times, kids are safe, but there's a long road ahead. And Sherry Frank is the eldest daughter of the 2, Ruby and Kevin. Neighbors claim they've been trying to get the authorities involved for months. Police reports appear to back up Sherry's claims. According to NBC, both she and a neighbor called 911, asking officers to check on the children. Sherry apparently told the operator that she was concerned about her siblings' health and safety, while the neighbor reported that Frank was leaving her kids home alone for days at a time. In a separate conversation with NBC, an unnamed neighbor claimed that multiple adults in the community had been trying to get the Utah Division of Child and Family Services involved for over a year, having noticed Frank's long absences. Very interesting. I'm really angry because I spoke up. Other people spoke up, she said. If people knew the amount of tears and time spent talking with law enforcement and CPS over the last year, I want people to understand that. I want those kids to know that, because I think they thought they were abandoned. The Springville Police Department told NBC that officers did show up at Frank's home to investigate, but their attempts by the Department of Child and Family Services to contact the kids proved unsuccessful because the kids wouldn't come to the door. And this is where you know the queen will get crunk. Well, why didn't you try breaking the door down? Naturally, the daughter and the mother are estranged. They're not speaking. She's telling you she's fearing for the safety of the children. Why didn't you try to break entry into the home? And all that's going to have been alleviated. At a shelter hearing, Frank attempted to divert blame to her minor children, alleging that one of them is sexually abusive. On September 7th, Frank video conferenced into a shelter hearing from the Utah jail where she's being held to determine custody for her 4 minor children. In an exclusive, the Daily Mail reports that the disgraced momfluencer used that time to deflect blame for her alleged behavior onto her kids. She claimed one confessed to abusing 20 other children, including a sibling, cousins, and neighbors. Frank did not provide evidence for her allegations, but according to the Mail, Judge Sushata Bazell told the courtroom that Frank's purportedly abusive child would need to be placed in a home with no other children. She set a meditation hearing for Frank on September 15th and a pretrial hearing on September 18th. Frank remains in custody on a no bail hold. She's expected to attend those hearings in person if she is released. Both women have allegedly suffered medical issues while in jail. Now, why does that not shock me? According to jail records, which people purportedly viewed, both Frank and Hildebrandt were transferred out of general population and placed under medical observation shortly after being detained. Frank allegedly moved to the observation block on September 8th, only to return to her usual place later on in the weekend. While Hildebrandt's attorney claimed in court filings that she's experienced a life-threatening medical issue resulting in her hospitalization for several days. It's not immediately clear what may have happened, though Hildebrandt's lawyer used her supposed malady to lobby for an expedited detention hearing. Hildebrandt's niece came forward accusing her aunt of severe emotional, spiritual, and psychological abuse. After Ruby Frank's shelter hearing, Jessie Hildebrandt, Jodi Hildebrandt's niece, came forward to Salt Lake City-based news station KUTV and shared their own experiences living with their aunt over a decade ago. Jessie, who uses they, them pronouns, alleged that the self-styled life coach subjected them to severe emotional, spiritual, and psychological abuse and accused them of being a sex porn addict addicted to masturbation. They also said the therapy Jodi administered to them included barring them from using tampons or having privacy in the bathroom. She wanted to make my life so uncomfortable that it would force sin out. This continuously got worse and worse, Jessie said, accusing Hildebrandt of duct taping their mouth, blindfolding them, and telling them they were too dangerous to be around other people, resulting in isolation periods of up to 12 hours a day. Jessie said they internalized their aunt's teachings to the point they became afraid of themselves. I was forced to sleep outside in the snow, they recalled. If someone spoke to me directly, if I wasn't wearing duct tape on my mouth, I had to just stare at them and not respond. Jessie also noted that Jodi has had support from the Mormon Church, even though people have spoken out against her. We have a culture of not believing children and not trusting children. Children trust their parents, and the parents trust the church. This article has been updated. The Cut is the source. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to take a few notes. If you bear with me briefly. Oh, mercy, what a mess. Okay. A lot to go over. More. Thank you all so much for stopping by. Oh, Lordy, Lordy. What a mess. Okay. Once again, the cut is the source of this information. Let's talk about the church. What is the role of the church? It sounds to me that the church plays a role as well, because you have a lot of allegations mentioned here in this article. And these are assertions from other said people. You're entitled to your opinion, what you believe. But I believe the church plays a role. We also have an issue with Department of Human Services. People watching the channel, 8 passengers making claims, petitions, unfounded by the state. But yet, what I had said to somebody the other day, something terrible has to happen for the state to finally get involved. And my thing is, it's usually too late. You either have this sick situation here of a child escaping, and or the worst case scenario, a child dead or missing. Take your pick. Why is this? We're going to talk about that as well, because now we're talking about a multifaceted situation. It's always he said, she said when it comes to abuse, neglect, wrongdoing. And a matter of who believes whom. We have a church that has some radical teachings and idealisms that they put upon their parishioners, and it's up to the parishioners to decide if they want to follow the teachings or not. Then you have to ask yourself the mindset of the people who are listening to this radical teachings. Please go to my community board to take the poll pertaining to the church's role in this case here of Ruby Frank, her husband Kevin, and this business partner, Miss Jodi Hildebrandt. Seems like the father has vacated the premises, but he's not going to get off because 8 passengers date back to 2015, and I doubt that Miss Hildebrandt was in the picture. So that means, Kevin, you are not off the hook of allowing your wife to abuse your children. And at some point, you have had to have knowledge of her idealisms and her ways with your kids. You also have to be aware that your older child doesn't speak to Ruby. So now I have to ask you, what is your relationship with Sherry? Let's talk about the church. We're going to dissect everything today. Wikipedia.org is the source. I'm bringing you general information pertaining to the church and how it came to be, and what is the role of the church in this debacle of Ruby Frank, Jodi Hildebrandt, Kevin Frank. What happened here? And how did this go on for years, these children being abused by their mother? I'm going to say the father too, because he can't get a pass. Sorry, Kevin, but you are on this donkey ride, and your ass needs to be arrested as well. Lord have mercy. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, informally known as the LDS Church or Mormon Church, is a restorationist, non-Trinitarian Christian denomination belonging to Mormonism. The church is headquartered in the United States, Salt Lake City, Utah, and has established congregations and built temples worldwide. According to the church, it has over 17 million members and 62,544 full-time volunteer missionaries. Based on these numbers, the church is the fourth largest Christian denomination in the United States as of 2012 and reported over 6.8 million U.S. members as of 2022. Classification, restorationist, don't even know what that means. Orientation, Latter-day Saint movement. Scripture, Bible, Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price. Theology, non-Trinitarian Mormonism, don't know what that means either. Polity, hierarchical. President, Russell M. Nelson. Yeah, okay. Region, 176 nations and territories. Headquarters, Salt Lake City, Utah, United States. Founder, Joseph Smith. Origin, April 16, 1830, 193 years ago, as Church of Christ, Fayette, New York, United States. Separations, LDS denominations. Congregations, 31,330 as of 2022. Members, 17,002,461 as of 2022. Missionaries, 62,544 as of 2022. Aid organization, philanthropies, tertiary institutions, 4. Other names, LDS Church, Mormon Church, Church of Jesus Christ, Restored Church of Jesus Christ. Official website, churchofjesuschrist.org. The church was founded as the Church of Christ in Western New York in 1830 by Joseph Smith during the Second Great Awakening. Isn't that interesting? And we do have the Church of Christ denomination for those who do not know. And now it's called something else. Interesting. Once again, founded as the Church of Christ in Western New York in 1830 by Joseph Smith during the Second Great Awakening. Under Smith's leadership, the church's headquarters traveled to Kirkland, Ohio, Missouri, and New Nauvoo, Illinois. After Smith's 1844 death and a resultant secession crisis, the majority of his followers sided with Brigham Young, who led the church to its current headquarters in Salt Lake City. And obviously, that's where they get the name for the college, Brigham Young University. Young's successors continued the church's growth, first throughout the Intermountain West and more recently as a national and international organization. It is by far the largest denomination in the Latter-day Saint movement. Church theology includes the Christian doctrine of salvation through Jesus Christ and his substitutionary atonement on behalf of mankind. The church has an open canon of 4 scriptural texts: the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, D&C, and the Pearl of Great Price. Other than the Bible, the majority of the church canon consists of material the church's members believe to have been revealed by God to Joseph Smith, including commentary and exegesis about the Bible, texts described as lost parts of the Bible, and other works believed to be written by ancient prophets, including the Book of Mormon. Because of the doctrinal differences, many Christian groups consider the church to be distinct and separate from the mainstream Christianity. And I think I will concur with that. Latter-day Saints believe that the church president is a modern-day prophet, seer, and revelator, and that Jesus Christ, under the direction of God the Father, leads the church by revealing his will and delegating his priesthood keys to his president. What a Lord Daybell comes to mind reading this. Okay. The president heads a hierarchical structure descending from areas to stakes and wards. Bishops drawn from the laity lead the wards. Male members may be ordained to the priesthood provided they are living the standards of the church. Women are not ordained to the priesthood but occupy leadership roles in the church organizations. In some church organizations. Both men and women may serve as missionaries. The church maintains a large missionary program that proselytizes and conducts humanitarian services worldwide. LDS Church also funds and participates in humanitarian projects independent of its missionary efforts. Faithful members adhere to church laws of sexual purity, health, fasting, and Sabbath observance, and contribute 10% of their income to the church in tithing. The church teaches sacred ordinances through which adherents make covenants with God, including baptism, confirmation, the sacrament, priesthood, ordination, endowment, and celestial marriage. The church has been criticized throughout its history. Modern criticisms include disputed factual claims, treatment of minorities, and financial controversies. The church's practice of polygamy, plural marriage, was controversial until it was curtailed in 1890 and officially rescinded in 1904. The LDS Church has been subject to criticism and the subject of controversy since its early years in New York and Pennsylvania. Modern criticism of the church includes disputed claims, allegations of historical revisionism by the church, child sexual abuse, anti-gay teachings, racism, and sexism. Notable 20th century critics include Gerald and Sandra Tanner and historian Fawn Brody. The church has been criticized for a number of alleged abuses perpetrated by local church leadership. In other cases, church leaders have been criticized for allegedly failing to properly report abuse to law enforcement. In the late 1820s, criticism centered on the claim by Joseph Smith to have been led to a set of gold plates from which the Book of Mormon was reputedly translated. Mainstream archaeological, historical, and scientific communities have discovered little to support the existence of the civilizations described in the Book of Mormon and do not consider it to be an actual record of historical events. Let me repeat that again. Mainstream archaeological, historical, and scientific communities have discovered little to support the existence of the civilizations described in the Book of Mormon and do not, say it again, Queen, do not consider it to be an actual record of historical events. Scholars have pointed out a number of anachronisms within the text. They argue that no evidence of a reformed Egyptian language has ever been discovered. Also, general archaeological and genetic evidence has not supported the book's statements about any known indigenous peoples of Americas. Since its publication in 1842, the Book of Abraham, currently published as a part of the, oh God, all these words, canonical, so crazy, canonical Pearl of Great Price, has also been a major source of controversy. Numerous non-Mormon Egyptologists, beginning in the late 19th century, have disagreed with Joseph Smith's explanation of the book's facsimils. Translations of the original papyri by both Mormon and non-Mormon Egyptologists do not match the text of the Book of Abraham as purportedly translated by Joseph Smith. Indeed, the transliterated text from the recovered papyri and facsimils published in the Book of Abraham contain no direct references to Abraham. Scholars have also asserted that damaged portions of the papyri were reconstructed incorrectly by Smith or his associates. Polygamy. Polygamy, called plural marriage within the church, was practiced by the church leaders for more than half of the 19th century and practiced publicly from 1852 to 1890 by 20 and 30% of the Latter-day Saint families. It was instituted privately in the 1830s by founder Joseph Smith and announced publicly in 1852 at the direction of Brigham Young. For over 60 years, the church and the United States were at odds over the issue. At one point, the Republican platform referenced the twin relics of barbarism, polygamy, and slavery. The church defended the practice as a matter of religious freedom, while the federal government aggressively sought to eradicate it. In 1862, the United States Congress passed the Moral Anti-Bigamy Act, which prohibited plural marriage in the territories. In 1890, church president Wilford Woodruff issued a manifesto that officially terminated the practice in the United States, though it did not dissolve existing polygamous marriages of any couples, some of which continued to cohabit into the 1950s. Some church members continued to enter into polygamous marriages in Canada and Mexico, but these eventually stopped in 1904 when Church President Joseph F. Smith disavowed polygamy before Congress and issued a second manifesto calling for all plural marriages in the church to cease. Several small fundamentalist groups seeking to continue the practice split from the LDS Church, but the mainline church now excommunicates members found practicing polygamy and distances itself from those fundamentalist groups, and that would be the FLDS Church. Ethnic minorities. The teachings, attitudes, and practices of the top LDS church leaders towards Black people have changed significantly from its founding years to the modern times, and the church has faced criticism and controversy on these topics. Church founder Smith taught that the dark skin of people of Black African ancestry was a sign of their curse from God, and both he and Young taught that Black people were subject to the biblical curse of Ham, the curse of Cain. They also both made statements in support of Black enslavement, and Young legalized Black slavery while acting as Utah Territory's governor. From 1844 to 1978, the church barred Black women and men from participating in temple ordinances necessary for the highest level of salvation, prevented most men of Black African descent from being ordained to the church's lay, all-male priesthood, supported racial segregation, and segregation in its communities and schools, taught that righteous Black people would be made white after death, dear God, and opposed interracial marriage. Leaders taught on many occasions during this time that Black people were less righteous in the pre-existence. The temple and priesthood racial restrictions were lifted by top leaders in 1978. Public pressure during the United States Civil Rights Movement had preceded the priesthood ban being rescinded. In 2013, the church directly disavowed its previous teachings on race for the first time. It also goes on to talk about Native Americans. It's a bit winded. The LGBT people, criticisms of Joseph Smith, financial controversy, responses. I'm not going to go on to that, but I can go back in. And then, as I said, the fundamentalists broke off, and that's the FLDS Church, and that's where we have the Warren Jeff debacle, who wanted to practice plural marriages. What is the role of this church? As you just heard in this information, you're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to believe in God, know God. How you worship is your business, but that's the subject in this live stream. These people are following this doctrine, and as you heard in this Wikipedia information, most of the information has been unfounded, pertaining to, I guess, the Book of Mormon and its religious teachings. These people indoctrined what they wanted dating back hundreds of years ago. No foundation. See, this is what happens to many of us. You lead by example. You go by what you've been taught, what you've heard growing up. Some people stray away from what they were taught, teachings of the Bible and different religions. They go their own separate way. Some decide to practice the faith, some do not. But what is the role of this church with these people? Who is this woman, Ruby Frank? Who is her partner, manager, now jailmate? Both in jail, sickly, allegedly. But I believe they're now in regular population. Let's go over what was said during this commentary pertaining to the allegations. Both Ruby Frank and Jodi Hildebrandt face charges, child abuse, 6 counts, maybe more. They are in jail with no bond. All 4 children are in the state's care. So 2 were removed from the house along with minor children. Are all the children together? Each face 15 years in prison, which I find disrespectful. Because you say $10,000 per count in fines, but yet only 15 years total for abuse of children. Once you find a child duct tape, lacerations, open wounds, 15 years needs to be thrown out. You deserve life in prison. I don't need a dead kid to say what they've done is wrong. Leave them in prison. Sisters relieved. Ruby Franke's sisters say they are relieved. She's arrested and the children now are out of their care. Don't you find it interesting that the children are not in any other relative's care? Why is that? Because naturally, when you're dealing with the church, you're dealing with radical minds, abuse, the state don't know who to trust. So they ain't giving the child to no family members. Because they already know 9 times out of 10, these other people probably practice the same faith. Nah, we better hold off and do some more investigating before we place these children with any other relatives. The older daughter said she's called. She and another neighbor, 911. She's estranged from Ruby. Why? What happened between this daughter? Where is she? How far does she live from the children? And why were the children at Miss Hildebrandt's house? I find that interesting. Why were these children in this lady's house with her? We also get acknowledgement from Miss Ruby that she acknowledged 2 days before the arrest of the children's malnourishment and physical abuse. Who does this? So what did you do? Make a video, Ruby? See, this is how stupid you are, you and your fucking friend. I wanted to refrain from cursing, but it's very hard when you talk about children. This is why I don't like talking about children's stories, because I can get very ignorant in my tone, in my speech. Why are you videoing anything? You should be tired of that. That's what got you in this mess in the first place. Online petition. I find that interesting. How many people signed the petition? Why wasn't anything done? Police go out to investigate, or DCS, whomever. Nothing. Why? Why not? Unsubstantiated. Well, you all were wrong. And I have a problem with that. Because who's going to stand account? Which worker or supervisor are going to stand account for going out to investigate and finding out nothing? And now you got a kid escaping with duct tape around his ankles. Who's going to stand account? Who's going to be fired? Nobody. Who's going to find out who was over the case? Nobody. Because it's all private information. And this is happening more and more with the Department of Human Services. This is why I keep trying to tell people, when you sit up and say, oh, they're a problem. Yeah, they're a problem to some degree. But one thing we do know, they don't just run in and take children out of houses, as some of you believe. Because most of the cases of child abuse, missing children, and dead children, there was a call of child neglect and abuse. And the children were not, let me repeat, were not removed. Not removed. What happened with the daughter and Ruby for them to be estranged? What is the problem with the father not seeing his children in 13 months? You will hear his lawyer speaking to different news entities such as Law and Crime Network that he was trying to do what she wanted. Recommendations by Ruby Franke, and I do believe her co-conspirator, Miss Hildebrandt. But you're a man, and you're a man first. And if you actually love your wife and your children, I find it strange that you would agree to stay away from the house for 13 months and never see your children, video chat, Skype, pick them up, take them to activities, go to functions. So then we have to ask what the hell was going on with the children for 13 months. Were they homeschooled or attending school? Were they allowed out of the house to go to different activities? What? Now we got allegations that this woman was leaving her children unattended. So did she leave somebody in the house to watch the children? Were they bound, tied up in the house? How long has she been starving her children? How long has she been abusing her children? Because we can go all the way back to 2015 when she did the YouTube channel. That's even worse. Because that's 8 years. We're in 2023. She has grown children now. Stay woke. And too many people were calling. People who watched the YouTube channel, neighbors, family members, her own children, and yet nothing was done. Now, who's going to stand account for not doing more in investigating these crimes against these children? And why did the father go along and ride the ride? Kevin, you are just as guilty. Because I refuse to believe Miss Hildebrandt was in your vicinity, in your peripheral, back in 2015 when people were complaining and allegations were coming out in 2020 per the YouTube channel. Will the father be charged? Ruby Franke decided to blame her own children. One of her children is accused of molesting other children in the neighborhood and siblings. Which child is it? Is there truth to it? So far, nothing has been substantiated by Ruby Franke per the child and the allegations. Is this her way of trying to deflect from her abusing her children? Is she trying to use this as a way to get out of abusing her children? That this was the reason for abusing the children? He was a child molester. Now, Ruby, are you this slow down? You torturing your children. I believe you've had some type of sexual relationship with this lady. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that there's something real funky and foul about you and this lady. And she's got a little masculine feel to me. And the fact that her own nieces have come forward, that they were in her custody and she's accused them of being addicted to porn and masturbation, that would lead me to wonder what the hell was going on. And if somebody was touching those children that were in her care, and why were they in her care, these nieces? And if they were children, what would a child know about masturbating? So you have to ask the ages that they were allegedly accused of touching themselves. See, it goes deeper. I keep trying to tell people it's always worse than what you think. This is just the icing on the cake. Baby boy getting out free from bondage. We're talking about two warped beings crossing paths and meeting one another. Does this ring a bell? Lori Vallow Daybell, Chad Daybell, her niece, her brother. Stay woke. And what's the common denominator in that storyline? The LDS Church. Yeah, I'm going to say it. Because it's a fact. Viewers had already been saying negative things about 8 passengers pertaining to her parenting skills, Miss Ruby. How did this go on this long? They also had an online petition, as I brought you that information via the cut. Still, the state says we don't find anything. So what was the husband doing while the state is coming to the house to investigate back then, I'm wondering? Did she even tell him the state came? See, the father is guilty too. I'm not about to sit here and give him a pass, because what I have to tell myself is if you can go 13 months without talking to your wife and your kids, you have totally checked out. You're not going to sit here and make me believe that you were listening to your wife's and her friends' reasoning for you not seeing the family. This was supposed to help. No, this was her way to get out of being in your peripheral and vice versa. She was making an exit and you foolishly went along. But then again, this is just your version. We don't really know the conversation between Ruby and Kevin pertaining to them separating. And what were the main reasons? You want us to believe, oh, she was a strict mother. I couldn't deal with it anymore. She thought it was best I get out of the house. This is probably, as I said, her way to vacate the premises, get on with her life with this woman. Everybody stay woke. And you foolishly went along. But like I said, you're just as guilty. You're just as guilty. One of the boy children by the name of Chad told somebody or the public that he slept in a beanbag for 7 years. Now, how many people knew that the boy child didn't have a bed to sleep in, or his bed was not given to him, and he slept in a beanbag? So what do you want me to believe? They took a whole bed out of a room? Because the average child, if he or she was locked in a room, he would get out of the beanbag and go get in his bed. Allegedly, this was punishment for playing pranks on his siblings. Miss Ruby, you are a dirty bird. You've also been seen on video when you had the YouTube channel of depriving your children of food, telling your one daughter she didn't need food since she didn't pack a lunch or didn't take a lunch. Well, isn't that your job to pack your children lunches, ma'am? You're stating you give your children free will to do things. So basically you're saying what? They don't abide by your rules, regulations. You don't mind taking away their privileges. And of course, many parents do reprimand their children for not obeying their house rules. But were you deranged in your child rearing? You had become unglued, unhinged, detached from reality. Sinister. Making the children line up single file to eat a banana, bragging that you liked how you were treating your own nephew. You like talking to him negatively. Who does that? So you're like everybody else, getting too attached to that camera phone and filming every little detail. I'm now going to the restroom. I'm now taking a shower. I'm now going to color my hair, tweeze my eyebrows. I'm now going to abuse my children. I'm now going to make them stand in a line to eat a banana. You're unhinged. This was probably the worst thing they ever made, was a damn cell phone. Allowing us to take pictures with the phone, allowing us to be able to video from the phone, allowing us to be able to upload videos to other platforms. That was probably the worst mistake man ever made. Because now we've gotten outrageous with filming every damn thing on a cell phone. And then spreading it around to different avenues. And it's out there in La La Land, as somebody said to me yesterday. You don't know where that stuff ends up. Every picture, every video, it's out there in space. Exactly. 2 million subs to the 8 Passengers channel, which has now been deleted from YouTube earlier this year. She started a channel with Miss Jodi. All these women certified and have actual degrees in what they were preaching and teaching to these people. I also heard they were charging a lot of money for certain courses to these women, mothers. We now know that they weren't certified to give any type of information as mental health coaches, life coaches, therapists, because they are abusers. We also learned that Miss Hildebrandt broke protocol and ethics by discussing a client's personal business and sessions to the elders of the church. And we have learned that these people who get involved in this LDS church, they love running to the elders to tell them what Pookie did and Susie Mae did and what John did. But why aren't you telling what you are doing? So while you were listening to a client's personal business during a session, you forgot to tell them that you were mistreating your own family members that were in your custody. And I bet you didn't run to the church to tell them you've been abusing Ruby Frank's children. Checkmate. And as you also heard in this commentary, the church still supporting these heathens, which they do a lot in child abuse cases, adultery cases, still upholding these people, yet you're supposed to be holding them to a higher regard. So that means you're hypocrites. Jodi got 18 months probation from the licensing board for discussing a patient's private business. 18 months. So in 18 months, what was she allowed to do and not do, Miss Hildebrandt? Was she able to practice or not practice for 18 months? Because when you say probation, elaborate. Was she still a therapist? What are her degrees in? Where did she attend school? I want to know. And I also like to know if Miss Ruby Frank has a degree in psychology or sociology, any type of mental health. Does she have a master's degree, a PhD? What does she have? We also learned in this commentary that the husband was a professor of engineering at Brigham Young, but no longer. So what is his profession at the moment? Because naturally, you'd have to have a nice career to be able to take care of 8 passengers. It's a catchy title, Ruby. 8 passengers that are now 0. How interesting. How interesting. A YouTube channel you started with her, or she had first, whichever connections, was just a fraud to possibly get money out of people, manipulate, bamboozle innocent people, and God forbid, lure more unsuspecting people down the rabbit hole to become vile creatures such as yourselves. And what are the odds that 2 women would meet, mesh, to become co-conspirators in child abuse? They won't. Is there more to the relationship between Ruby Frank and Jodi Hildebrandt? I believe there is. When I saw them sitting together on the sofa, my spirit told me I won't doubt that these 2 are having sexual relations, because it's gone too far down the rabbit hole to just be business. Pay attention now. Lori and Chad were man and woman in sinister, nefarious business, if you get my drift. So why couldn't it be 2 women in the LDS church living a lie fraudulently, knowing the church is against homosexuality, but they've been bumping tails? Yeah, I'm saying that. Will we find out that these 2 are gay and or bisexual? And they were hiding their sexuality. That is the one reason why Mr. Kevin has been away from the family 13 months. It ain't just about her being a strict parent, marital problems. It's way deeper than that. It's been some girl-on-girl action. No bond for these heathens. Rightfully so. Both went into jail claiming medical problems. Well, you must know R. Kelly. And how many other defendants that go to jail and all of a sudden they're sick, they can't see, they need a wheelchair, they need a walker, they need a cane. Everybody's so fine before they're arrested. Don't you find that interesting? You're running around, taking trips, leaving your children unattended, going on cruise ships, spas, resorts, eating, going live, living the high life, abusing your children, locking them up. But then as soon as you're arrested, you don't feel good. Yeah, it's called stress. High blood pressure, worrying if I'm going to get out of this hole, worrying about my fine home. And I must say, Miss Hildebrandt, that house out there in the desert, my, that's a nice abode you have there. Amazing the monies we can make from being a professional and also luring people with a bunch of bullshit on a YouTube channel. Now, I am not fortunate enough to make a lot of money on YouTube because many people don't watch my content. I don't show videos and things. That might be one of the reasons I don't make a lot of content, get a lot of viewers. But the one thing I am is I stay on my game. I speak the truth to my best of my ability. And I ain't luring nobody down a rabbit hole for $700, $800 a course. Your nieces came forward with allegations of child abuse, emotional abuse, spirituality abuse. That's because you're tainted. And you met with this woman, Ruby. I must admit, this is a eerily similar story to Lori Daybell and Chad. You all better pay attention. If I didn't know any better, they are the one and the same. What are the odds of two women meeting up to exact abuse on children, hold them hostage? A husband is somewhere far away. Older daughter estranged from the mother. Ding, 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 ding. You want to tell me this ain't a repeat of Lori Valor Daybell and Chad Daybell? The only difference is we don't got no dead children. But had the children stayed locked up in that house, we might have some dead children. And nobody would have known nothing had the children died. Because let me tell you what was going to happen. It was going to be a repeat of Lori and Chad Daybell. The children would have been buried somewhere. And nobody would have known a damn thing. One year of neighbors and Sherry calling 911. Neighbors wanted people to know, want the children to know specifically that we cared for you, we were concerned for your welfare, and we did the best we could by calling DHS 911. We want you to know that we cared for you. How noble. Because you see, as I have said, that you are a party to the child abuse if you have knowledge of it, whether you know the perpetrators or not, know the children or not. It's principle. So long as you're watching people get beat up, hurt, harmed, and their children specifically, you're a party to it. We know it's not any of your business. We know they're not your kids. We know that's not your relative, but it's principle. You have knowledge. And at least these people tried to call. So let's ask, how many calls went into 911 of the children being left alone and abused? How many times did DHS go to the house where she stayed with her children, Miss Ruby? And how many times was the police called? And how many times did they go in the house? Did they ever attempt to go in the house? What pisses me off is they're saying the children never came to the door because they probably were afraid and threatened not to go to the door. They feared Ruby Frank. What was the relationship between this thing, Hildebrandt, and the children? Did they also fear her? They had to, because they were in her house and they were slowly dissolving into nothing. How do you starve a child? So now we got to ask the obvious question. What was the motivation for this strict exact of abuse by the two? What was the relationship between the two? What were they going to do had one of the children died? And why didn't anybody know that these children were dissolving physically? Who all knew they were dissolving? Both are currently in jail without bond. That's how it should be. You are welcome to join the Queen on the panel to give your commentary pertaining to Ruby Frank, Kevin Frank, Jodi Hildebrandt, the LDS Church and their involvement. And do you believe people following this religion, that they are lost, already deranged, delusional, or it's a combination of both in general and in this case of these two women and Mr. Frank? Is the husband still patronizing the LDS church? That's another question I have. And will he also be brought up on charges? Because it will not be right if he does not. Because if abuse is going back to 2020 or beforehand, then that means Kevin Franke is as guilty as charged. And whatever cocked up story he wants to give for why he is not with the wife is bullshit, and they don't register with me. Because for you to stay gone from your children a whole damn year, you are just as guilty as Ruby and Jodi. You are cut from the same damn cloth. You may not have brought down the hammer, but you're a witness. You had guilty knowledge, and you vacated the premises as a coward. Those are your children, and you brought your children here, and they look to you for support, stability, love, and you failed them. And you turned a blind eye, and now you're using some cockamamie lawyer to do your talking for you, and it ain't good enough. It ain't good enough. And people are going to want to hear from you, sir, not your attorney. Yes, we have questions. Why did you allow this to go on as long as you did? Why didn't you take custody of your children and leave your wife? When you realized this relationship wasn't going to work, why didn't you file for custody? I believe that's why she had you leave, so she could later tell the judge when she decided to file papers for divorce that you abandoned them. You better wake up, boy. Because either you're a part of this bullshit or you're really, really slow for an adult. Love. You love Ruby, do you now? But you don't love your kids. You see, there is no love in this story. Because if you loved your kids, you would have left with your kids or asked Ruby to get the hell out of the house. If you loved Ruby, you would have told her, this way of living is not conducive to my spirit. And this ain't the way to raise children. You don't just disappear and then later say, oh, it's all on her. I was just doing what she asked me to do. So you and Ruby both are cowards. She's blaming the child for molesting other children, and you're blaming her for why you left the house. This is ridiculous. Thank you all so much for joining me. Once again, if you'd like to donate to this great network, $sign Big Angie 129 Cash App. Stickers and chat to welcome during this live stream. I will now drop the StreamYard so you can give your opinion pertaining to these diabolical creatures and how they came to mesh together. Because that's one thing I have said recently in my live streams. It is one thing to have one diabolical creature, but how do you talk other people into joining you in the conspiracy to hurt others? Hold the secret to mischief, mayhem, defrauding people, lying, cheating, manipulation, abuse, neglect, torture, murder. As I said, this is just a part 2 of Lori Daybell and Chad Daybell. The only difference, the children did not die. Thank you for joining me. This is horrendous. One moment, everybody. If you've never spoken on this network, you're welcome to come up and give your opinion. Welcome our new subs, viewers listening in. When I was going on my community page during my live stream yesterday and today, the first thing I thought of was that everything's negative. All the stories that I've posted basically to my community page just within a day or two. It's all negative. It's all about foolishness, nonsense, buffoonery of others. All abuse, neglect, murder. It's ridiculous. That even when you go into YouTube Q to the homepage, everything's negative. Few nice positive posts about what people are doing in the world. Somebody turned 100 years old. Somebody did a good deed. But then here comes court TV, law and crime, oxygen with negativity of cold cases, abuse, torture, missing people. Somebody finally got arrested for a crime. It's sickening. And here we have a case of a woman who was on a YouTube channel perpetrating that she was a good person when all along she's a demon. And the husband rode the ride alongside her. And then she met with another demon and they meshed as one to continue the abuse of her children. While other people were on the sidelines yelling and screaming to the police and the DC Department of Human Services to no avail. And as I said before, something terrible has to happen for the state and the police to finally step in. By the grace of God, we don't have a case of dead children. But had those children stayed in that house a moment longer, we might be talking about 2 missing children. Because there's no way they would have let the police come in and find 2 kids emaciated. You can believe that. They would have hid those kids. They would have buried them. Without a doubt. They would have hid those children. The Mormon Church has gotten a bad rap for its ideologies, but it all derives from illness. That's how this country came to be. I'm not shocked that the people who built this church and people who broke off from the church and built their own churches, the FLDS, however you want to call it, they all have these warped sense of identities and plural marriages and abusing women and children and sleeping with little girls and boys and all of that and covering it up and don't like black people, Indian people, Mexican people, because that's how the country was built in the first place. Built on theft, deception, making up stuff to put in a book, taking things away from a book, the Bible, whatsoever, because that's what man has been doing from day one. He's a thief. But yet he's the main one trying to tell you not to steal, not to defraud, but you built a country on thievery. So it doesn't shock me they have these warped ideologies in religion and making up stuff and trying to tell people how to live, how to walk. You can't tell somebody how to live when your own spirit ain't right. And that's how this country was built. And that's why down the road, this church broke off and different people build their own religion, because that's man. He's been doing this. Even with all the breaking up of this Mormon church, they're still not doing what they're supposed to be doing by people, which is being noble. You still have some biasness in your teachings, in your attitude, in your deception, conspiracies, deceiving people. Then you're not talking and preaching about God and Jesus. You're a fraud. And you see that in this case. 2 lonely women jacked up together, acting like a couple, abusing children. We now are talking about 2 sets of different children. Jodi's own nieces and these children under Ruby's care. Absentee father. People calling and writing and messaging to no avail, which I find very disturbing. And then finally, the truth is revealed because a child escapes this madhouse. So I'm going to ask Ruby and her lover, how long were you two going to continue this facade of torturing these children in the house? How long were you going to leave them in the house? How long was this debacle going to go on? And what was the end game? Because I'm sure you weren't planning on that boy getting out of that house. So what was the end game? And why do you not have a relationship with your daughter, Sherry? Why not? What happened? Did Sherry get tired of riding the ride? She became an adult, left the nest, and kept on flying. Hell no, I ain't going back in that house with her. I'm done. And as I said earlier, does Sherry have a relationship with her father, Kevin? And if she doesn't, why not? And I'm trying to understand, Kevin, what's your motivation for not reaching out to your children, sir? Video chatting with your children, visiting your children, picking up your children, taking your children out, spending time with your children. Why haven't you filed for divorce, sir? What the hell is going on with you? And why are you trying to act as if you have no party into this mess with your wife, Ruby, and Jodi Hildebrandt? You are in thick. You all are thick as thieves. There's no doubt about it. In no way in the Queen's book do you get a pass, because the allegations of abuse are going back years. And as I said, I doubt that Hildebrandt was in the life of your wife. And in the end, it doesn't matter. You all are supposed to be free thinkers and think for yourselves, because you two are supposed to be meshed as one, you and Ruby, not Jodi Hildebrandt. You didn't marry Jodi. Jodi didn't marry you. Jodi ain't married to your wife. So how is it she's got ranks on your wife? Because possibly there was a sexual relationship going on before the arrest. And that's why there's all this secrecy and they moved you out the picture. Now nobody's hearing bells ringing in the background because they're loud and clear in my ear. This is a repeat of Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell. Everybody's whispering about something ain't right. Something ain't right, but ain't nothing done until some shit hits the fan, which is a little boy running out to safety. This is a repeat. And the LDS Church wrapped right in the middle. Imagine that. Let's go to some audio pertaining to this diabolical case. We're going to hear from attorneys pertaining to Mr. Kevin and his excuse for why he's been missing in action. Thank you for joining me. You're now listening to The Vault XL. Before I get into the commentary, the audio, I put up some polls before I went live, and here are the results. Is Ruby Frank and Jodi Hildebrandt in a relationship? 67% said yes, 7% said no, 26% of you said not sure. Is the LDS Church misleading its parishioners with religious untruths, biases, and strict teachings? 89% said yes, 11% said no. Does the LDS Church play a major role in the deterioration of its parishioners' mental state? The person is already unstable, or both play a role? 44%. Person is already unstable, 22%. Both, 33%. Ruby Frank and Jodi Hildebrandt have been charged with child abuse. Should Frank's husband also be charged? 92% of you said yes. 8% of you said no out of 13 votes. And also on my page, I've put a poll up pertaining to Mr. Henry Dinkins, who will get a sentence tomorrow by a judge in Iowa at 9:05 a.m. Central Time. Henry Dinkins says he is innocent. Did the jury make a mistake? 0% said yes. 80%, 88% said no, 13% said not sure. Will the judge find Henry Dinkins innocent or guilty? Innocent, 0%. Guilty, 100%. Henry Dinkins wrote the judge a letter stating evidence was given to his attorney's first day of trial and not beforehand, which is an Iowa violation, should the case be thrown out or a sentence rendered. Misspelled that, but we'll straighten that out. Thrown out, 0%. Sentence rendered, 100%. Thank you all so much for taking the polls. Let's hear what this crazy case has come to. Very sad. Very, very sad. One second. The StreamYard is in the chat if you want to give your opinion pertaining to the latest information on this crime. These two women are currently in jail with no bond. They're facing many charges of child abuse, and the fines can range up to $10,000 per count. Very sick situation. There's a lot of information in here. Right now, the latest updates, it's about Ruby Frank calling the husband after she got arrested, because she knew she was going to get arrested because the child escaped. The business partner manipulated, spearheaded destruction. That's the latest video. And also Ruby Frank's best defense in child abuse dissected. We also have an update pertaining to Brian Korberger. The family wants cameras in the courtroom. There's also commentary now that Ruby Frank's kid could sue her for sexual assault allegations. Exactly. This is how deep this is going. I'm sure this is going to get really, really bad. And naturally, you all have heard that she's shifted blame and blames her child, one of her children, for child molestation, which is absolutely just horrendous. I'm trying to find an attorney who spoke. I'm going to have to search. This is a bit winded. It's like 20-something minutes. 1 second, everybody. I'm trying to find something where the lawyer is speaking and not so winded information. There's a lot of info in the queue. Okay, let's see. Let's see if we can get a bit of information from the attorney. Yes, I'm very happy he escaped as well because, as I said, this was going to be a repeat of the Vallow Daybell case, most definitely.
Wherever you live, there's this community, this network of parents, and I found myself constantly in comparison with other parents.
The attorney for Ruby Franke's husband, Kevin, comes on to explain his client's current situation, whether he played any role in the alleged abuse of their children, and when he spoke to Ruby Franke right before her arrest. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. So we're continuing our coverage of the Ruby Franke case, the 41-year-old Utah mother of 6 who rose to online fame when she and her husband, Kevin Franke, started a now defunct YouTube channel called 8 Passengers. It documented their lives, their parenting style, homeschooling. Well, now Ruby Franke, along with her business partner and content collaborator, Jodi Hildebrandt, have each been charged with 6 felony counts of aggravated child abuse. Police were alerted after Franke's 12-year-old son escaped Hildebrandt's residence, ran to a neighbor asking for food and water. He was found emaciated with deep lacerations, duct tape on his extremities. This is really horrible stuff. But then it was compounded by the fact that when police arrived, they also found Franke's 10-year-old daughter in similar condition. Horrible story. But there is one person in this story that people are talking a lot about, and that is Kevin Franke. Now, while Ruby's husband has not been criminally charged by authorities, his role has taken center stage. It's got a lot of people talking. Well, joining me right now to unpack that is Kevin Franke's attorney, Randy Kester. Randy, thanks so much for coming here on Sidebar.
You're welcome.
I think the best place to start is, how's your client doing right now?
He's busy. He's struggling, trying to make sense out of what's happened to him in the last 13 months and kind of coming out of a fog.
So in other words, he was completely taken off guard by these allegations, completely shocked?
Absolutely shocked.
Where was he when he found out about this?
He was at work.
And how did he find out? He found out on the news? Did someone call him?
He got a call from Ruby.
He got a call from Ruby Franke?
Correct.
You mean after she was arrested?
Before.
Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. She had heard what was going on and knew they were coming for her and called him and said, "This is an emergency."
Let's stop right here. She called because she knew the little boy escaped, and she knew that the police was called. She knew the shape of the child. She knew what they were going to think when they found the child. She knew the child would speak and tell the truth of what was going on in that house, at Hildebrandt's house. So hell yeah, that's why she called the husband. Hey, come get the kids, blah, blah, blah. But as you see, Kevin doesn't have the children. The children are in the state's care. So now you got to ask yourself that obvious question. Why does he not have custody of his own damn kids? You know why? Because the state and the police found out he ain't been around. So hell no, we're not going to give you custody. Where the hell you been? And the fact that he's telling this lawyer, or this lawyer speaking on his behalf, he was shocked. How could you be shocked? You haven't seen your children allegedly. You don't know what they look like. First, the lawyer says, how did he word it? He talked to her once, or, oh no, he ain't seen her. He ain't seen her, them, the kids, nothing. Well, which is it? I'm going to go with he ain't seen her or the children. How about that? And now you're sitting here representing him. Why? He ain't done nothing. So why does a husband need representation? See, this is what tickles me about all of these people in these stories. They love to go get a lawyer. What you need a lawyer for? What you go get a lawyer for, sir? Your wife called to tell you, hey, something going down. I need you to hurry up and come down here, blah, blah, blah. And he's telling the lawyer, I don't know. I ain't know she was down there. So you don't know nothing. You know nothing about nothing. So guess what, Mr. Kevin? That's the reason why you don't have custody of your damn children. Because you don't know nothing, allegedly, about nothing. You've been missing out of your children's lives for a whole year, allegedly. So there's no way in hell the state is going to give you custody of some kids you haven't even laid eyes on. You also hear in the beginning of this commentary the children were homeschooled. That's another reason this abuse went on, because there's nobody to keep account of the children outside of the parents. Checkmate. Who easier to abuse a person is when the children or persons are out of sight from the viewing audience, the public. I asked this question earlier, were they homeschooled? Now you have the answer. Yes, they were. That's why this went on, you see. And naturally, these type of people usually don't have a lot of people running in and out of their house because they don't want people to see how they actually treat the children, reprimanding the children. This is ridiculous and it's disgusting. And this ass needs to go right down with her and her girlfriend.
Even though she had reached out to him for months and months and months before that. She reached out to him when it was an emergency, knowing she could rely on him.
Yeah, whatever.
To help his kids.
Yeah, whatever.
So in other words, you're saying she knew the police were coming to arrest her. She calls Kevin to say, take care of the kids. How did she know the police were coming? Because again, the reporting indicates is that her son had escaped that house and called and went to a neighbor. And that's when the authorities were alerted. Do you know how she knew they were coming?
I would never want to predict anything that she might know. Kevin doesn't know. He doesn't know. I don't know how she knew what was going down. All he knows is he got a text from her that said emergency, need to speak with you. He was at work and text back and said, I'm at work. What's up? And she said, I need to speak to you immediately.
And then they spoke on the phone.
Correct.
And that's when she told him.
Well, actually, I think most of it was, they did speak on the phone.
So they spoke on the phone. And when she told him that the police were coming, what did he say?
She actually didn't say that. She just said, you need to get down here.
You need to get down here. And what did he say about that?
He said, down where? And when she told him that she was in Ivans, he responded and said, what are you doing in Ivans? And she then told him that the kids were down there. Some of the kids were down there and he needed to come down. And he said, well, how long have you been in Ivans? He wasn't even told that she had taken the kids to Ivans.
Let me unpack that a little bit. So first of all, their current status, were they separated?
Correct.
They were separated, I read, for 13 months. So they weren't living with each other. How much was he seeing the kids?
Almost not at all. Actually, not at all.
Why is that?
There you have it. Almost not at all. Not at all. Almost not at all. Not at all. Sir, do you hear yourself? You're representing a man who is just as guilty as Hildebrandt and Franke. And now he's acquired you as representation because he knows the bang is going to come down perhaps on his head pertaining to him not being vigilant in the lives of his children. And to use you as a mouthpiece is even more disrespectful. Because hell yeah, people are watching and looking and wondering what the hell is going on here? Where has this man been? How does he not know anything about his children? Knew anything of the children being malnourished didn't know that they lived in some other state and they're in a house with another woman. So now let's ask Mr. Kevin. Kevin, what do you think has been going on between your wife and Jodi? I'll ask you, what do you think? Will you speak to the public, sir? Are you going to continue to play this role that you are oblivious to what the fuck was going on with your wife and this woman? The fact that you left your family allegedly on the guise of this was best for the family. How is this best, you not being a vocal part, a physical part of the family? This makes no damn sense. What is the real reason you and Ruby are not together, sir? Why did you leave the house, sir? Why haven't you seen your children, sir? Have you been paying monies toward the upkeep of the home and the children, sir? Because I got a feeling she was going to eventually file for divorce and ask you for alimony and child support. That's possibly why she got you out of the house. But see, I don't know what to believe. Who told who to leave and who decided to leave? I don't know if you just left on your own and you're playing crazy now, or she asked you to leave because she wanted to get rid of you to be with this woman. But there is something very sinister in this story for obvious reasons. We now have allegations of child abuse on both parts, on Frankie's children, and Jodi's own nieces, where she abused her children, nieces and nephews and whomever in the past. You have been missing in action. There's no relationship between Miss Franke and the older girl child, Sherry. And then there's evidence that detectives and police have seen, which is abuse to the two children. And those, to me, aren't allegations. Once they have visual wounds, to me, that's not an allegation. That's fact. Yeah, we are wondering what the hell's wrong with you. And where have you been?
Why is that?
Because she told him it was better, that they needed to work on their marriage and needed to keep their family together.
I don't believe it. Really.
All right, intermission there. Sorry about that. Work on the marriage. 13 months, missing in action. And this is the excuse he has given to his attorney. Okay, whatever, Kevin.
He was better off with him not in the home and not communicating with the children.
Makes no
If you
sense.
can, why were they separated? What was the catalyst?
I probably shouldn't go into that. That's pretty private.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just say they were they had a difference of opinion about their family.
Parenting? I know you can't talk about it, but is it that kind of where we're going?
Correct.
Okay. So let me
And their own personal dynamic.
Okay. So he was living separate from her. Was he calling the kids? Because I think what a lot of people are looking at this and they're wondering, well, what did he know? So he might have been living separately from her for 13 months, but he wasn't calling the kids, checking in on the kids, seeing how they're doing. He's the father.
I totally understand that. That was the big question on my mind and the big question on a lot of people. If you read everything that's in the media, he's getting raked over the coals for that. But what people don't understand is that he was trying to preserve his marriage. He was taking direction from her. She's the one who asked him to leave the house and indicating that in order for him to be able to get back together with her and be a family, that she was requesting that he leave the home. And
see, right here, exactly, hippie, BS. She's requesting you leave. So you left and just said the hell with it. I'm not going to call or visit my family on request of what my wife wants. Well, how can you work on a relationship if you're not holding a conversation with your wife? You're not seeing your wife. You're not talking to her. You're not visiting. You're not having relations with your wife. There's no sanctity here. There's no nothing here. I believe all this was a setup perhaps for her to get him out of the house so she could be with this woman. There is something going on between she and Jodi. Come on, everybody, stay woke. The husband is gone, hasn't seen nobody in a whole year, and she's been living in a house with a woman in the middle of the fucking desert with children who are damn near dead. Do you all not see Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell repeat? Get the husband out of the way so I can be with this woman. And like I told you, if these children had died, You wouldn't have heard nothing else about these kids because nobody would have been in the picture to tell you nothing when they last saw the children. Oh, when did you last see the children? I don't know. Let me think. 6 months ago. Who's going to tell it? 2 children already gone, which would be older children. She's got 4 left, and they're about to knock them off by starving them to death. They don't go outside. They're not going in activities. You hear neighbors saying they left them unattended. She left them unattended for God knows how long, days on end. This woman is diabolical. And you all were following her, some of you YouTube fans, following her page. And then one day you woke up and said, oh my gosh, I don't like the way she's talking to her children. I don't like the way she's treating her children. No, we better drop a petition. And look how long that went on. Look how long that went on. 2020 up until now. 3 damn years of children being mistreated. And you should know it's longer than that. That's just when you all decided to draw the petition. She's probably been abusing her children since birth. And to a child, be you 10, 6, 8, 5, it's an eternity. It's an eternity. This lawyer, I understand you have a job to do, but what you're saying to to the public right now is atrocious. Speaking on behalf of this fool. This man is a buffoon. And to think that you're going to get favoritism by the general public, you are not. Yes, you're going to probably get some of those crazy church fanaticals. They're going to rally behind you. Some of your stupid family members, they're going to rally behind you. But sir, you are dead wrong. Kevin, Franke, you are wrong. You are out of line. You abandoned those children and they could have died in the care of your wife and this woman. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. And I'm going to do a separate video on your ass because you deserve it. Just like this bobblehead you were married to.
He not contact them or the children. Later told him that everything was blissful at home. It was so much better without him.
Did he ever believe that the kids were in danger? Did he ever believe that Ruby might have been doing something to the kids?
He had nothing to indicate that.
This is the nastiest stuff I've seen from the government this year, and I can't believe people haven't even noticed it. Since January, the government has been scamming you out of a $6,400 subsidy that was supposed to be given to all Americans under 65 to cover your essential expenses.
I stepped away.
So again, I know you're limited in what you can say, but just again, piecing that together, if Ruby Franke told that, it's better off he's not part of the home, and, that he lived separately from them and not have any contact. He just took that as, okay, that sounds like a good idea. Or did she prevent him in any way from seeing the kids? Did he want to see them and talk to them and she told him no?
Emotionally, she was controlling him because she knew how much he valued their marriage and valued their family. And it was his desire to be able to get back with the family and preserve his marriage. So he was taking direction from her. Her direction was, it's so much better off, and I think we can salvage our marriage if you just, for now, don't have communication with the...
Very good question by the host. Was she preventing Kevin from seeing the children? And here we have the lawyer saying it was her idea for him to stay away, no communication, to salvage the marriage. This makes no sense. I don't care what type of relationship you have with a person, friend, foe, whatever. At what point is it going to reconcile itself? The courtship, the friendship, the marriage, relationship, if two people are not talking and they don't see each other. It is one thing to tell a person, I need some space, I need some time, I don't want you to call me, I won't call you, or I'll notify you when I'm ready to talk. That's different. And actually, if the person wants to be in a relationship, they're going to say to the person, okay. But once they don't hear from them after a couple of days, a week, don't you think they'll reach out and call? Hey, I'm trying to reach you. Hey, I want to talk to you. I miss you. I love you. So how many times did this man reach out to his wife and family when he got no response from her? Did she say how long she wanted them to go without talking? See, this is the old adage of out of sight, out of mind. You stay away from a person long enough, you will move on. It's not to say that you won't think about them from time to time, may even miss being with them, seeing them, talking to them. But it's up to you to decide if you want to reach out to say, hey, I'm ready to talk. I want to talk. I think this was her ploy to get rid of him, if I'm to believe this assertion from Mr. Kevin. And I'm still trying to understand his mindset of, I love my family. I'm trying to preserve my relationship. How are you preserving a relationship when you're not even talking to your wife? That makes no damn sense to me. Preserve what, sir? You're not talking. You're not seeing each other. You're not spending time with one another. You're not even talking and seeing your own damn kids. I can see, at least you say, well, let me see my children. I miss my children. You're not even doing that. And I'm supposed to sit here and believe this bullshit. You're using this damn lawyer as a mouthpiece. Oh, well, I just did what she told me to do. So you basically saying you're just a damn flunky for a husband. You're this weak-minded as a man. And then you're supposed to be the leader of the house, the role model of the house as a husband, father, provider. You're also, I'm assuming, you believe in the doctrine of this church you all love going to. Ain't nobody told you something from the church. Hey, you need to be talking to your wife. You need to be dealing with your wife. You didn't miss even having sex with your wife, sir? And you want me to believe in 1 year you ain't had sex with another woman? Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that. Have you been out here sleeping around and messing with somebody else? Do you have another significant other? What is the real reason you two are not together in that house? Is it just she's a strict mother, you got fed up, or she got fed up, or you all were disagreeing about how she was reprimanding the children, and then she told you to get out? Because there's something missing here, and it's called the truth. How about that? That's what's missing. Your lawyer is not telling the whole truth. And I got a feeling, naturally, you've told the lawyer more, he's not revealing everything. Because the host has already asked, and you have declined to say why the two are not together. So it's more than her child rearing skills. What is the whole truth?
Kids, and I will communicate with you. I'll reach out to you when we need to have communication.
And even though they had a difference of opinion, possibly about parenting, that never gave him a concern to, hey, you know what, maybe I should check in. Because if it seemed like it was a big enough issue for them to separate, it didn't seem like an issue for him to check in on.
Kevin never had any reason to believe that his children were being abused. If he had even one inkling that his kids were being abused and that this separation wasn't for any other purpose than to figure out a way between he and Ruby to reunite their family, he would have been down there in 2 seconds.
Do they
he just
currently
had no idea?
I don't believe that.
He had no idea.
BS.
He had no idea that this was going on.
No, physical abuse had never been a part of their family. But a lot of the dynamics between he and his wife changed.
Sir, that is a lie. That is a lie because I believe that's a lie. You don't wake up one day torturing children and duct taping children. One thing I found interesting in the cut article I read to you at the beginning of this live stream, Jodi's own nieces assert she would put duct tape over their mouth. Well, Franke's children, boy child, escaped duct taped. So that means Jodi, 9 times out of 10, is the one who probably told Ruby, hey, let's put duct tape around his ankles, because she did it to her own damn nieces. And Ruby went along with it. And she was already cruel to her children, strict, even, I believe, before meeting Jodi. So see, they're evenly yoked in cruelty. They're evenly yoked, both of them. They're feeding off of one another. They fed off of one another. And the husband fed too, because he rode the ride. And whether he never touched the kids or was strict, he rode the ride with Ruby. So to me, you're still guilty. And as I said, you don't wake up duct taping children, leaving children unattended for hours. I won't doubt that she was putting her hands on her children. Even then, nobody knew, but we will wait to see what the children have to say. If the children will tell the truth, that if they were physically abused by their mother. Because in order for you to start duct taping children, one is going to believe you also put your hands on them. Why would I not believe that? And they're duct taping children because they're probably too big. They can get up and move around. So now I got to duct tape them to restrain them because they could run, open a door, climb out of a window. Stay woke. This is horrendous. This is horrendous, horrendous information. Let's finish this.
Changed after Jodi Hildebrandt partnered up with Ruby.
Let's talk about it.
3 reasons why.
All these commercials are endless. This is horrible news. All this is just everybody passing the buck.
Do Kevin, her client, and Ruby, have they been talking at all while she's in jail?
The last conversation they had was last Friday. And that's when, during that conversation is when he came to his senses about how he'd been manipulated and deceived.
Are you saying he confronted her about these allegations?
To some degree. I don't know the entire contents of the conversation, but his discussion with me was that during that conversation, things were said that made him realize how he'd been deceived and misled. And as I told you earlier,
What was the actual conversation? What did she say to him? Did she tell him the truth that she and this woman had abused the children? What did he say to her? And how in the world does he feel like he was manipulated? Because, sir, you played a role from day one, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. And using this lawyer as a mouthpiece is not going to excuse your behavior to stay gone from your family. And also, you were living in that household with her before I believe Hildebrandt even became a party to this conspiracy. You were the husband first and foremost. 9 times out of 10, you had problems with your wife before she met Jodi Hildebrandt. Stop this nonsense. You are doing just what she is doing by blaming the child for child molestation. Do not know if those allegations are true or not. In the end, it doesn't matter. You are the parent, then you are supposed to rectify the problem, get your child some help. And as you heard in an earlier commentary, the child doesn't need to be living in a house with any children if the allegations are true. So far, I believe they are unfounded. And how do you feel about that, sir? The allegations that your child has been molesting other children. How about that? You're passing the buck, and you're doing exactly what your wife is doing. You all ought to be ashamed of yourselves. Now, I'd like to hear what Jodi Hildebrandt's excuse is for her role in this crime. What is she going to say? Oh, Ruby talked me into duct taping him and saying he was evil. Maybe she's going to tell us he was a zombie. The children were zombies. Is that what we're going to hear? The children were evil beings. They were possessed by an ancient figure. Lori Vallow Daybell, Chad Daybell all over again. I'm going to be truthful, and this probably is a horrible thing I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it. I don't think anybody needs to be following that church, LDS church. And if somebody's walking by you today with a pamphlet, run like hell. I'm going to say that. Run like hell. And I don't care if a person is mentally ill or not. I would not partake in any information pertaining to the church. Because as the old saying, I can do bad all by myself. This is horrible. Let's finish some of this information, everybody.
He didn't even know the kids were in Ivan's.
You had just said that he knew that Ruby and Jodi were working together.
Correct.
So how was he that shocked if he knew that they were working together and maybe she had brought the kids with him? I mean, did he not think that perhaps Ruby had taken the kids to Jodi's house?
Typically, she would tell him something like that, but she didn't. She'd had the kids down there from about late May, I think maybe June, until this all came about, and she didn't tell him one thing about taking the kids.
This conversation makes no sense. How can he say he didn't know she was going to be down there? He didn't know she was going to be down there with Jodi. If they haven't talked in a year, she could be anywhere. She could be in Canada, Paris, London. She could be dead. Children dead. Do y'all see where I'm going with this? This conversation makes no sense. He hasn't talked to his wife or children in 13 months. How would it be she would call him to say, oh, hey, by the way, I'm going to go hang at my friend's house, whether she worked with the woman or not. If I'm not talking to you, I don't know where you are and what you're doing. You all need to stop this. The cat is out of the bag now. So all this, I don't know, I wasn't there, I haven't heard anything. Oh no, she didn't call me to tell me she was with Jodi. This is bullshit. And it's utter disrespect to these children. But that's expected of people who do not want to own their part. So I should expect this. She's going to make up stuff about her kids. She's going to probably bring up more lies about Pookie, Ray, Kevin. She's probably going to turn on her little lover, Jodi. Jodi's going to turn on her. And now Kevin's making up stuff about who called him, who's on first, who's on second. All of you all are bobbleheads. And Kevin, you deserve to be in jail with your wife. Guess what? You two haven't seen each other in 13 months. Well, I think you should be in the cell with her. And you all can resume the relationship that you had beforehand. How about that? That's how I feel right now. Matter of fact, put all three of you in the damn cage together. You could have a menage a trois.
What does he say about Jodi Hildebrandt?
That she's manipulated him in conjunction with Ruby. That she's been kind of the spearhead toward essentially destroying his life and destroying his family.
How did Jodi and Ruby get connected? Does Kevin know?
I don't know.
I don't know. Is Kevin believing that perhaps it was Jodi who was manipulating Ruby in this? Or because it also sounds like Kevin feels he was manipulated by Ruby. Is it just all the blame on Jodi?
I think it was a team effort, but with Jodi being the spearhead and creating a situation that's just caused all of this destruction of his family.
Why does he believe that Jodi is manipulative? What makes him believe that?
Once again, Kevin passing the buck to now say it's Jodi's fault. Well, my understanding is that people were noticing signs of your wife being too strict before Jodi came into the picture, when she had the 8 Passengers YouTube channel. Jodi was nowhere around. Somehow she got tangled up with Jodi after people were calling and filed a petition and the state came out to your house to investigate child abuse allegations. So then she stopped posting to 8 Passengers. Please refer to thecut.com, the early part of this live, where I give you that information. So you trying to put it all on Jodi is bullshit. All of you all are evenly yoked. You knew there was something wrong with your marriage. You knew there was something wrong with the way she was reprimanding the children. And then when shit popped off, she got tangled up with Jodi. It sounds just like an old black folk song, old Jodi. This is just a white version. And then she didn't need you anymore. How about that? I don't need Kevin. I got Jodi. Except Jodi's a woman. And hey, I'm all for you liking who you like. But why don't you divorce your husband first, Ruby? And then you can go run off into the sunset with Jodi. Two evildoers together. And then Kevin could have raised the children and you got visitation rights or not. Now, nobody has the children. The state has the children. And two goofballs are locked up, minus one, which is Kevin. Did I get that right? Yeah, I think so. This man is pathetic.
Probably shouldn't go into that, but we recently reviewed on another website an interview with Jodi's niece,
Right.
who described to the public exactly what she had done, what Jodi had done to the niece and her family, and we're hearing other information that she's done this to a number of families. And it wasn't until this all came to light that Kevin came to realize that his family had also been victimized by Jodi.
Have the authorities reached out to your client?
Oh, certainly. He's interviewed with them.
And they see him as a potential witness?
I've been telling you guys.
Oh, now he's a witness. Please stop this. This is just getting, the interview is just getting worse by the moment.
He was interviewed with them the day this all occurred.
And
He drove to St. George to get his children, and they met him and interviewed him.
I guess when people are looking at this, and they know this is not an isolated incident, because you and I both know that the Frankies have been under a close eye for quite some time. There were people who suspected that the kids were being abused or were treated too harshly. So even putting aside the arrest of Ruby Franke, your client was receiving criticism for quite some time over the parenting techniques. What is his response been to that?
There hasn't ever been an allegation that Kevin Franke has ever physically abused his children. And I think all these parenting complaints, those were investigated, and I think it's a subjective thing. Parenting, as everybody says, no one's ever written a perfect book on parenting. So while there may be some criticism of their parenting as being too strict or too demanding,
So glad for you to say their parenting, because I was waiting for you to try to exclude Kevin from the allegations. Exactly, their parenting. He was right there for the ride, whether he agreed or not, or he was a participant. Either way, Kevin was there.
that's been looked into. And there were never any DCFS charges filed. There was never any criminal charges filed, and particularly, and I want to emphasize this, Kevin Franke has never been accused of physically abusing anyone, including his children, nor have there ever been any allegations.
Well, that means nothing to me, sir, because now a child has lacerations and been duct taped, and his sister is also in a similar condition as he, and he was also medically held at the hospital. So miss me with this. They were never charged. He was never accused. That's neither here nor there now. We're talking about the now. Now the wife is in jail with her girlfriend. Now your client's going to have to stand account for what the hell he's been all these years while married to her and did nothing. And the fact that there's some truth to the allegations because of how your children were found. So you can word it however you like. Use all the legal jargons you want. Children were found abused, and that's the end of the story. So whether DCS did something 5-7 years ago, it doesn't mean anything now. It just shows there was something going on, and the state kept it moving because maybe there weren't visible wounds, duct tape around ankles and wrists, rooms without beds. That's not the situation now. And sadly, these children have endured God knows what while people were out here raising hell with DCS and 911 to no avail.
Allegations that he was doing that.
Okay.
He doesn't.
One moment, everybody. We're going to take a brief break. One moment.
Condone that kind of thing. He's a good dad. He just simply does not condone physical violence or that kind of treatment of children or anyone.
And he's right now in touch with all of the kids?
That's all being sort of managed by the juvenile court.
Do they want to see him?
I can't tell you. I don't know. I know that he's had contact with his two older children, but as to the four younger ones,
Get this back.
even if I knew, I kind of made an agreement with the court that we wouldn't talk about the kids.
What about the older children? What has been the conversations between them and Kevin?
Well, they're kind of on their own, but they've had contact, but I'm not at liberty to disclose those conversations.
I mentioned the criticism that the Frankies were facing. The YouTube channel that they had was shut down. Did Kevin ever explain to you why that happened?
No, I have no understanding as to why that was taken down. I know after these incidents at Ivan's, I believe that a lot of their material was taken down by the platform, but I haven't spoken to Kevin about that. I have no understanding as to what's going on with that right now.
The money that they made off of the show, I think Ruby had claimed at one point they were making a significant amount of money. Has Kevin ever spoken to you about that, about how profitable that show was?
Sorry about that. Had some maintenance here. Let's resume this. So we have an issue with the children, older children. Are they speaking to the father, the older children who are out on their own? What else will we hear from the children? Will they admit to being abused as children in the household alongside seeing abuse of their siblings? Who was the child that got the worst of the abuse in the household? Was it one, two, or all? How did it come that this went on for years and nobody did anything? That's where the state is going to have to answer. And the state is going to have to take some responsibility. You all cannot just keep lying in the cut and saying everything's private information. You only reveal things once children are dead. It's not good enough. Because you're going to have to stand account that these children were abused by their parents. And the father can get an attorney, and the attorney can use all this legal jargon, all he wants. This is bad. This is bad. The host asks, do the kids want to see him? He doesn't know, doesn't have an answer. This is bad. This is really bad. Shocked at the allegations. How can you be shocked when that's possibly one of the reasons that you're not even in your marriage? You were away from the house. And once again, we don't know the whole truth to why Mr. Kevin was not at the house, why she allegedly ordered him to be away from the house. You don't know what's the truth, because these are his assertions. And right now, I don't trust Kevin. Okay? I don't trust him. I just don't.
Giving his earnings to Ruby that we're going to support the family.
Yeah, I think everything's about the money with all these people.
He retained sufficient amounts of money to take care of himself while they were separated, but all the rest of that money was going to Ruby to support the kids. And he hasn't spoken to me about what amount of money was ever generated by that. He actually, pardon the phrase, but he actually disconnected from any involvement with Connections a year and a half ago. It hasn't had anything to do with 8 passengers for even longer than that.
I'm sure you know that there was a hearing last week where Ruby Franke, and I believe it was over Zoom, she made quite the allegations. She said that one of her children was abusing another one of the children, was abusing cousins and neighbors. That is quite the claim. What is your client's take on that?
Well, because it occurred during juvenile court proceedings, the reporter who snuck into the proceedings and reported that damaged these children and this family even more. It was despicable what they did in reporting that. And but because, again, I have an agreement with the court that I won't speak about the children, and particularly won't speak about proceedings that occurred in the confines, the sanctified confines of that juvenile court. I'm not going to comment on that.
Okay. And Kevin, what are his steps right now to try to get the children back?
He's consulting with professionals. We're working in conjunction with the state of Utah through the juvenile court to work with them, to take direction from them about what they feel would be necessary to heal his family and try to figure out a way, if possible, to reunify the family.
Has the rest of the family, the older siblings, have they agreed that perhaps that Kevin would be the best person to take care of the minor children?
You know what? I can't speak to that. They've had private conversations with their dad, and I'm just not at liberty to speak about that. I don't want to disturb those private conversations between he and his kids.
Does Kevin plan to attend the rest of this criminal process for Jodi and Ruby, the hearings, potential trial?
He should want to.
Well, the hearings are taking place down in Washington County, down in St. George, which is about a 2.5-hour drive from where Kevin lives. And so most of those, he's probably not going to attend. If they require him to attend, he'll go. But my guess is he probably isn't interested in attending, though.
2 to 2.5 hours away from where he lives. I want you to think about that. That's why I always tell you to listen to the information. This is how you can come to form your opinion pertaining to a storyline. Why in the world would you live 2.5 hours away? Or is it 2.5 hours from his house to where the kids were found? I'm confused. So let me ask this question before I rush to judgment. How far did Kevin live away from the main house with the kids? How far was Jodi's house from the main house where she allegedly was raising her children? How long was she staying in the house with Jodi? Let me ask that. Because if I find out that the husband lived an hour or more away from his family, I'm going to question that. So did he live in the same town, but just in a separate residence? Or was he an hour or two more out? What's the truth? In the end, many are going to still say it doesn't matter. If he lived in the same town, he lived 20 minutes away, 15 minutes away, 5 minutes down the street. The point is you didn't visit your wife, you didn't visit your kids. And you're sitting here now want to blame Jodi. Jodi is an outsider who your wife let into the fold. That was between you and your wife to decide how to handle Jodi. And I got a funky feeling that Jodi is probably a main part of this story, but the wife is just as guilty, you see. See, there was strife before Jodi. There was mischief before Jodi. What happened is an evil mind met another evil mind. And another little donkey was riding along with them. That's the husband. Okay? And he doesn't get a pass in my book because he is a main part of this story as well. Because he was married to Ruby before Jodi came in the picture. That's the important part. So to put it all off on Jodi, it's BS. You and your wife had problems before she met her. I believe, as I said, something was going on between his wife and Jodi. I believe they were having a one-on-one relationship. And possibly that was the reason why she wanted him out of the way. And I think he knows that. And I think we're going to find that out, that the two women are gay or bisexual, and they've been having a relationship with one another. And that is the main reason why he is out of the picture, was out of the picture at the time. And the abuse went on with the children. She was already a strict parent. She met another strict person. They coincided on their beliefs with each other on a YouTube channel, and one thing begat another. That's in the scripture. One thing begats another. Evil mind, we're evil doing together now, conspiracy, and then poof, we've had child abuse, sexual relationship, conspiracy. They're all guilty. Every single one of them.
Does he plan to cooperate, or is this a situation where he may decide to plead the fifth and protect his rights?
Well, thus far, he hasn't been accused of any crimes, and in my view, I don't think he's committed any crimes. So,
Mr. Attorney, you have every nerve. You have a lot of nerve to say you don't think he's committed any crime because he hasn't been accused. You mean he hasn't been charged with anything? Specify that properly. If the judge gives him a pass on any allegations against these children, the judge will need his ass whipped too. Because as I said, this is not a story that just jumped off when she met Jodi. There are allegations before, 9 times out of 10, before she even met Jodi. And I haven't heard information that she's known Jodi, 20, 30 years. This is Chad and Lori all over again. Already evil minds were in the works separately. Then they met. They became evenly yoked. And then the evilness meshed. And that's why we have dead children, dead husband, a dead wife pertaining to Lori and Chad. Stay woke now. And had these children continue not to eat, we'd be talking about some dead children. And possibly a dead husband. Stay woke. He was taking care of the family. I asked that question during the earlier part of this live stream. Because she wasn't making money from the YouTube channel because she wasn't posting. So then she got in cahoots with this lady to do another YouTube channel. They had a business together making money. But it still is nothing like your own. Hello. Husband making a probably decent amount of money, giving her money. As you hear the lawyer say, he doesn't know how much he was giving her to take care of the house, the children, blah, 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 blah. So what was he doing? Just sending her a check every month or putting it in a bank account and she just had access to the account. Do you see how and hear how stupid this sounds? I'm taking care of my children and my wife, but we don't talk. We don't see each other. We don't have a relationship. We don't have nothing going on. But the lawyer's acting like, oh, he should have known that she was down there with the girl, with Jodi, because they were business partners. So let's do the math. When did she actually go and start staying down there with Jodi? How about that? Was she staying down there when the husband was around? Because now I'm starting to wonder, the lawyer's acting like he should know that that's where she was. But like I told you earlier, how would he know where she was if they haven't been talking in a year? The plot thickens. I think there's going to be a whole lot that's going to come out of this story. Once again, the Pacific Northwest is on fire. Literally.
and he's had pretty much full disclosure through the juvenile court, which my understanding of that discussion, he simply alleged that he hasn't committed any crimes, and I don't believe they believe that he has. The police haven't contacted me. No one's contacted me about him being charged with any crime.
So now the lawyer is speaking on behalf of authorities. They don't believe he's committed a crime. Well, sir, just because he hasn't been arrested or charged with anything does not mean they don't have evidence that he's a willing participant in the abuse of his children. He was married to this woman. He's only been gone a year. 9 times out of 10, the abuse was going on for longer than a year. So he knows about how his wife was treating the children. And also, we also have to ask the role he played and what the children have to say. You think the state has not interviewed the children and asked them how they were treated by their father as well? Come on now. Now, don't do that. You want to speak on behalf of your client? That's your business, because he's paying you to be a mouthpiece and a puppet. But don't speak on behalf of the detectives and their findings, because we haven't got that information released to the public yet. What the children have to say about all of the abuse and what their life was like, their lives were like, with Kevin and Ruby. Now you are jumping the gun, sir. Just another old dirty attorney.
Crimes. But the system is what it is. We don't know what's upcoming, so we're having to be circumspect about what we say and what we reveal.
So in other words, law enforcement has given no indication whatsoever that they are looking at your client as a potential criminal defendant.
They've pretty much been silent, haven't said one way or the other.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So for a lot of people who are looking at your client, making assumptions about what he may or may not have done, what is the message that you want out there?
Just what I keep repeating, that if you get to know Kevin, he is an incredibly decent guy. He's been a great father. He's provided for this entire family, even during his absence. He's made sure that they had financial means to provide for whatever they needed. He's never been a violent person. He's never severely disciplined his children, and especially not in a physical way. And he's working hard to do what he can to restore his reputation after it's been destroyed and damaged, and he's getting raked over the coals by all of this, when in fact he himself was to some degree a victim of these psychological and mental manipulations.
Now he's a victim.
Perpetrated against him and his family by Jodi. He's just trying to restore some normalcy in his life and make sure that he can.
So now you're saying that your client is a victim. So I'm going to ask you this, or I'm going to ask Mr. Kevin. So Kevin, you never physically abused your children. You never demeaned your children. So every time that your wife was going live on camera for the YouTube channel, disciplining the children where people were complaining, you were not around and had no knowledge of that information. So you want me to believe you never watched any of the videos that your wife did where you were not in the videos? I'll wait. You had to have watched at some point, even if you weren't in the videos, because at some point your wife got scrutiny for her behavior with the children. So wouldn't a sensible person go look at the videos if they weren't in the videos? Let me see what they're talking about. Let me see the allegations and the concerns and complaints that people have against my wife. Stop this nonsense. See, for every allegation and assertion this man comes up with, the queen can counter it with logic. Oh, I wasn't there, but let me go check. She made a video. I ain't in the video, but let me go check to see what they're talking about. Let me go see. So now, sir, you're going to have to tell us, the general public, that in the videos where she is allegedly abusing her children, strict, harsh, whatever, he never once watched the videos. That's what you're going to tell us next. He has no knowledge. He never watched the videos. He's a part of 8 Passengers, but he ain't part of 8 Passengers. So he was just an unwilling participant all along. So then we're just going to wonder, well, then what type of marriage did he have with Ruby Franke? Was he absent when he was actually supposed to be there before Miss Jodi came along? See, what did I just tell you? One thing begets another. The devil has tentacles. And when there's strife in a situation, the tentacles reach out and latch on to other people. That's the devil's job. So 2 people aren't getting along, got problems, they're disagreeing, marital problems, bickering over monies, how to raise children. And the next thing you know, shit pops off, complaints, mommy goes and runs and finds a new cohort. Are you following me? Finds solace with a Jodi Hildebrandt. She finds solace in Ruby Franke. And the rest is history. Now the tentacles continue to grow with abuse of these children with 2 co-conspirators, minus daddy. Everybody on board? Did I clear that up? And then one day a child flees for his life. And then the cat is out of the bag. So, Mr. Lawyer, I think you're going to have to do better than what you're doing here on Law and Crime, because you're just exacerbating an already fucked up situation. And you are acting as if this man is not a guilty participant when in the end he was married. Oh, excuse me. He is still married to Ruby. And he vacated the premises for whatever reason. And that was his choice. And he is also a co-conspirator, because he was in the picture before this union of Ruby and Jodi. And then he left his children behind with this demon and another demon. So hell yeah, he's just as guilty.
And as was his goal all along, to keep this family together and make sure that they thrive and that they recover from this abuse.
All right, Randy Kester, thank you so much for taking the time. We really do appreciate it.
Well, nice to meet you guys, and thanks for letting us have an outlet to kind of get his side of the story out there.
All right, everybody, that's all we have for you here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
All right. Thank you for giving us an outlet. You mean thank you for giving you an outlet to deflect your client's role in this debacle of mayhem against children. I'm going to say this and I'm going to check out of here. I will bring you more information pertaining to this. I had no plans to discuss this subject matter on this network because it's dealing with children. And when you're dealing with more than one person that could be guilty in the abuse of children, the story gets more winded and more tangled, and you start to lose focus and it becomes a shit show. But I've already discussed it and I will go on from there. I will keep you in tune and updated on my channel for updates and breaking news. Ruby is guilty. Jodi is guilty. Many allegations, the state involved, police involved. Everything came to fruition when a child escaped this home and made it to a neighbor's house asking for food and water, and the rest is history. Law officials were called. These two were charged. Husband notified by the wife beforehand because she knew naturally the police would be coming because she knew the state of the boy child. She doesn't have a relationship with her older girl child. Don't know if she has a relationship with the older son. Don't know if the husband has a relationship with the older children that are on their own. But one thing I do know, Mr. Kevin Franke is guilty as well. You entitled to your opinion. But in the end, he was married to this woman and he was with her before she met Miss Hildebrandt. That's good enough for me. These people became evenly yoked in mischief. One thing begat another. Parents dissipated. Here comes this lady. They probably already had problems when she met her. Let me make that clear. Then she becomes a problem in the marriage as well. Boom. I want him out. He's gone. However it went. He's devoid of being involved. And these two, I believe, were in a relationship together. That's my notion I get from Ruby and Jodi. They are in a relationship, or they were. Now we will see who will turn on the other one and blame the other one, such as what he's doing. He's blaming Jodi. He's saying he was manipulated to by the wife. Everybody's passing the buck to the other person. Nobody's taking responsibility for their role in the lives of the children. And that's where I have the problem, besides the physical abuse. You're not even taking responsibility. Just own your shit. Because the children didn't abuse themselves. And that's what we got to wait to see what the older children are going to say. And that's where you all going to be damned, all three of you. If the children come out and say all of you were abusive to some point or the other. Kevin. So you better hope they don't tell that you were a willing participant as well to some degree. And what you may not consider abuse will be abuse in the eyes of somebody else. That's the way it goes. Please stay tuned to my community page for updates. I will probably put another poll up pertaining to this story and other storylines. I want to thank you for joining me. I will do a separate video on the church, the LDS church, and I also want to do one with the Scientology in the title as well. Thank you for patronizing. Welcome all new subscribers, old subscribers, viewers. Like, share, subscribe. Make this content go viral. If you see something, say something. Be a part of the solution and not the problem. Mind the children. And no, there is no snitch rule pertaining to children. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $ Big Angie, 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live. Thank you. This was a very winded live because I brought you a lot of information pertaining to the LDS church and commentary on these two women, how they came to meet, the allegations against the two, the relationship of the father and the children, an extensive, in-depth discussion pertaining to all three adults and the kids, and the allegation and the church, and the role of the church. And what is the role of the church? Are they a party to this nonsense abuse? Or, let me say, is this religion misleading its patrons, misguiding them, giving them false information, false hope, false ideology, false information? And as I brought you information from Wikipedia, a lot of the information from this church is unsubstantiated. The possible these people are following a false God and false entities. But in the end, everything's about interpretation and what you believe. Some people believe in God, some do not. But most of us need something to believe in. And as for me, I can say, I believe in God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit. I know the Holy Spirit is real because I can feel it, and that's not something you can make up. Man couldn't make that up for me because it's something I feel innately. You all have a wonderful week. I will be back later with more commentary. You have been listening to The Vault. Excel, prayers for the children.